What's going on, everyone? This topic next coming up is why does Joe Rogan's podcast keep disappearing? It disappeared again today. We were told last week that it was a technical glitch, whatever that means, and ultimately it's questionable. Is it some rogue Spotify employee? Is it really a technical glitch? It's difficult to say, but it's happening at such a frequency that it's hard to believe that it's just a quinky-dink. Also, a revealing bit of information about Joe Rogan's reaction to members of the UFC backing him after there was an attempt to get him canceled. I don't know what's going on with the JRE. It's really bizarre. This is the second time it's disappeared from site on Spotify, and it's almost, I'm just starting to think that it's more than just a technical glitch, but we'll get into that after a super quick word from this video's sponsor. Huge shout out to this video's sponsor, Meta PCs. Look, you've been around, you know that I've been talking about Meta PCs for a very long time. In fact, it's the primary computer I use, but it's not just because they're a sponsor. It's for so many more reasons. They have fully customizable, configurable PCs and all the hardest to find parts in stock and ready to go. They also have ready to ship PCs ready for you today. Here's a couple reasons why I like Meta PCs. First and foremost, it's veteran ownership. Meta PCs is a veteran-owned business. One of Meta's owners has served both in Afghanistan and Iraq and received a Purple Heart for his service. Meta also employs military veterans in Meta's Operations Center and also provides systems to veterans going back to school to help them re-enter the workforce all across the United States. They offer financing. It has 100% US-based sales and support. And when you receive your PC, it's ready to go right out of the box. You don't have to get complicated and set things up. You just plug it all in and you're ready to rock. And on top of that, Meta PCs is offering you, my viewer, a huge discount when you use the link in the description or you use promo code TheQuartering. If you use my code at checkout, not only do you save money, but you support my content and a company that will not bow to cancel culture. So maybe you're not ready to pick up a new computer today, but when you are, remember to go to metapcs.com and use promo code TheQuartering to support me and to save money. And everybody wins. Hey, it may not be right now, but just remember to keep that promo code in your pocket for when you're ready for a new PC. Now, this is via Newsweek just moments ago. Joe Rogan's podcast keeps mysteriously disappearing from Spotify. The Joe Rogan Experience, at the center of fierce controversy over censorship and misinformation, briefly disappeared from Spotify on Monday for, quote, unexplained reasons. This is the second time in just a few days where the entire podcast mysteriously vanished. For a short time on February 21st, Spotify users were unable to access the show from streaming platform's website, the iPhone app, or the Android app. The show now appears to be available again, and it's not quite sure why it vanished. But the disappearance is certainly noteworthy given the controversy around the podcast and its host, which is under fire for hosting quote-unquote misinformation. This, of course, on the heels of the media finding out that they actually paid him $200 million and not only $100 million, and that just can't stand. The Joe Rogan Experience is exclusively available on Spotify, with Rogan famously signing a reported $200 million deal. Earlier this month, Spotify CEO Daniel Ek confirmed that Rogan himself had removed 113 of his past episodes from the platform over his use of spicy words in old installments, as well as episodes with, quote, controversial guests that were removed in 2021. Spotify has maintained support for their flagship show despite intense criticism. Monday's brief disappearance is not the first time the show vanished from the platform. Last week, Friday, February 18th, the podcast also vanished from Spotify, but reappeared minutes later. At the time, a spokesperson said for the streaming giant, they blamed technical issues for the mishap. Quote, it's a technical issue affecting a number of our shows and it should be resolved soon, the spokesperson told the New York Post. That is true. I was able to independently verify that JRE was not the only show missing. Several high-profile artists, including Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, have recently removed their music that nobody cares about. saying, Spotify represents 60% of my streaming of my music to listeners around the world, Young said in a statement. And my record label stood with me and blah, 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 blah. Don't care about you. What's interesting, though, is, as these people keep pointing out that he is spreading quote unquote misinformation, he brought a health expert on and our climate scientist, just the other day. And their reaction to the idea of debating things was curious to say the least. I watched the clip in real time, and he refused to debate anything around climate. During the interview, Joe Rogan asked his guest if he had ever debated anyone over climate change. Dessler said he did a debate. He debated a skeptic once, scientist Richard Lindzen, over a decade ago, but it was terrible and he vowed he would never do it again. Quote, my feeling is that I won't debate the science. So the science is set, he stated. The temperature is warming. Humans have caused it. I'm happy to debate policy because I think policy needs to be debated, he added. Rogan pushed back on his guest, asking why he would be unwilling to debate a scientist who disagreed with him. That is a good question. The question is it the science or is it the science? Because the latter seems to be changing every once in a while as we learn more information. See, I'm not so worn down by all this where I can't accept a reasonable explanation. Hey, we got more information, things changed, and now things are different. But to come right out and say, I'm unwilling to even debate it, that's concerning to me because this dude worked for the Clinton administration. Rogan pushed back, asking why he'd be unwilling to debate a scientist who disagreed with him when it would be beneficial to the public who doesn't know who to trust these days. The podcast host referenced his work the week prior to Steve Koonin, a physicist who worked with the Obama administration, who says that science on climate is not settled and the media exaggerates it. But Dessler claimed it would be too burdensome and time-consuming to, quote, fact-check someone who disagreed with him in real time. After Rogan disagreed, saying that there would be clear parameters set for an effectiveness and clarity, Dessler still wouldn't budge, saying that he would only debate policy changes to make the fight against man-made climate change. I think you overestimate the ability to settle issues in a debate, Dessler told Rogan. So they don't even want to talk about it, right? They don't want to talk about it. I don't understand it because science is always evolving and changing as we get more information. But, it's weird. It's weird. Oh, yeah, the Rolling Stone has an article trending that says, mega chuds to Ukraine drop dead. Exactly. Remember the Rolling Stone wrote about music? Now they just endlessly obsess about Joe Rogan. During a recent podcast, though, Andrew Schulz revealed that Joe Rogan cried after getting a endorsement from Stylebender, I'll call him, because I'm going to mispronounce his last name. Comedian Andrew Schulz revealed Rogan's emotional reaction to the UFC championship. Stylebender Israel defending him over the racism allegations. Despite growing backlash, Israel came to Rogan's defense during UFC's 271's pre-fight. According to Andrew Schulz, the 54-year-old comedian had an emotional reaction to the middleweight champion standing up for him. YouTube comedian then revealed, had an emotional reaction to the viral moment. I don't know if you and Rogan spoke, but I was talking to him about it, and he said it made him tear up. He said the UFC championship put his hand over his heart and said, I love that man. Israel then opened up further about why he defended the JRE podcast host. We know what's going on. That's why I say F the noise, he said. Don't focus on what they want you to focus on. Focus on why they're canceling Rogan. Why now? Well, I've often said that there's a lot to why they're canceling him. First and foremost, it's the fact that it's just his sheer size. 11 to 12, 13, 14 million listeners on a regular basis is bigger, I think, pretty much than every TV network, any show on TV. Maybe shows like Walking Dead were bigger, I imagine, maybe, or like Game of Thrones. But he's huge. But what I often point to is that there's upcoming midterm election in 2022, and then an upcoming general election, presidential election here in the United States in 2024. I believe strongly that media, the machine, legacy media, is concerned. They're concerned that he has too much power and he may actually be able to sway elections. You know, I think that he should just have Donald Trump on his show, to be honest with you, just to stick it to Spotify. I mean, I'm sure that he knows that that's like a, I'm not even saying whether or not he runs, he should have him on there. It would just be the wildest show I could ever imagine. Maybe Joe would do it if he said he wasn't going to run, because I know Joe's kind of worried about, I don't know, having political candidates on, although he did have Bernie Sanders on there. But anyway, the middleweight champion then clarified that while Rogan was in the wrong to have said those words, he believed his apology was sincere. Yeah, he was wrong. He shouldn't have said that. He said, "I'm sorry," and that was the most sincere apology I've ever seen. Not some scripted Hollywood, my manager wrote this down for me. I'm like, what more do you want? Israel also shared his theory on why JRE podcast was being canceled. He has the biggest platform on earth. He can't be controlled, he said. So the people, the powers that be, are like, let's cancel him. The star predicted that would be another wave of controversy around Rogan would pop up and his critics would keep trying to get him removed from Spotify. I've said the same thing, not to toot my own horn, but I absolutely believe that there will be continued attempts to remove him, continued attempts to get him off Spotify, to remove his platform. I think he's big enough, he's rich enough that he will still be able to produce his show, even if he does it on his own website. I don't see Spotify ever getting rid of him at this point, because it's like, you got $200 million invested in it. You got 11 million potential Prime Spotify premium members. So there's just no way that you could get rid of him. It just makes no sense. This after, of course, you know, there was Majid. I always pronounce his name, Majid Nawaz. He's been on Rogan several times, and he actually had a petition going because they hadn't released his episode. Why hadn't they released his episode? Is because he was like blowing Joe's mind when he was talking about like the World Economic Forum and things like that. An absolute must-watch episode, in my opinion. I'll continue to cover the Joe Rogan battle with the mainstream media for as long as I can. I obviously stand with him, not that he needs me to. And I hope you enjoyed this topic, and we'll move on to the next.